Hello and welcome to The Time of Telling. I'm Mark Walker, and this podcast is based on my unpublished manuscript, The Time of Telling, John Star Cook and the Word of One Tarot. Before we get started, I'd like to say something to the several people who have reached out to express support for the channel and who are enjoying the content. Thank you. I'm grateful for your support. Now, when we left off in the previous episode, the first human be-in for a gathering of the tribes, or more simply, the be-in, had just happened. And what a happening it was. 30,000 souls spent their day being with one another on an unseasonably warm day in the middle of winter. It wasn't a sit-in like the civil rights protests of the early 60s, it was a be-in, an affirmation of the bliss in the awareness of simply being. And when the last human being left, the place was perfectly clean. It was a great event, but was it the great event of John Cook's imagining? An event he considered necessary in the evolution of mankind? Spoiler alert, John Star Cook continued to speculate about this for the rest of his life, about what the great event actually was. But on the day of the be-in, John and those with him in Cuernavaca, Mexico, sat in meditation for the duration of the event. It was unseasonably cold, so much so that it snowed. John had no telephone, but he had an arrangement with his neighbour who did, and after the be-in, John was on the phone to Michael Bowen. The phone was passed around from Bowen to Allen Ginsberg, to Gary Snyder, who had all gathered with about 20 people at Bowen's apartment to celebrate the day. Now, inside the mood was celebratory, outside spirits were a little different, as police pounced on groups of hippies on Haight Street. Timothy Leary, having gone straight home to Berkeley after the be-in and exchanged his holy man white outfit for a respectable red sweater, Leary arrived at about midnight with his lawyer Seymour Lazar, a business associate of Billy Hitchcock. And after a brief excursion with Ginsberg to investigate the police action downstairs, they returned, Leary bearing an early copy of the San Francisco Chronicle, whose headline read, "Hippies Run Riot." Ginsberg telephoned the Chronicle to admonish them for their false reporting. 2 days later, Ginsberg and about 50 hippies met A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada at San Francisco Airport, chanting the Hare Krishna chant and continuing with it throughout the terminal until Prabhupada had his baggage, and continuing the chant as they escorted him to a black 1949 Cadillac Fleetwood. Prabhupada had arrived in New York in 1965 from India, and in 1966 established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON. This movement would see a significant boost from the Love Generation. Michael Bowen had been asked to secure a place for Prabhupada so that he could establish a temple in the Haight-Ashbury district. And Bowen found a temple at 518 Frederick Street in the Haight, which became known as the Radha Krishna Temple. Within a couple of weeks, there was a benefit for the Radha Krishna Temple, a mantra rock dance with Allen Ginsberg, Timothy Leary, the Grateful Dead, Big Brother and the Holding Company, and Moby Grape. A respectful crowd turned out in their finest hippie apparel. Even Bear came along. Prabhupada made a royal entrance and Ginsberg led the Hare Krishna chant, which went for over an hour. Ginsberg invited attendees to come to the early morning kirtan at the temple, noting that it was a good way to come down from LSD to stabilize on re-entry. The morning after the mantra rock dance, many did come to the temple, which, besides offering early morning kirtan, also offered an oatmeal breakfast. Radha Krishna Temple quickly became a popular hangout, and when the temple started also providing free lunches, it became integral to the Haight community. A fellow traveller with the Diggers and their daily free meals at 4 p.m. in the Panhandle. Michael Bowen spent enough time with Prabhupada to be asked by him if he had considered becoming his disciple. Bowen replied that he already had a guru who lived in Mexico. And later, Bowen related this story to John. And John felt uncomfortable with the title of guru, preferring to be known as a mentor. The experience of unity at the BN lingered in the air like a beautiful perfume, or the pure tone of a bell, or the colours of a rainbow. Bowen described the time following the BN as a period of several months when a kind of psychic harmony existed in the Haight-Ashbury neighbourhood. But into this idyllic scene began to come the teenagers, the youthquake, in numbers that rang alarm bells. Preparations were made for a great influx that was coming for college spring break. The BN was big news, and it struck a Pied Piper chord with young people across the nation. They came. The Diggers were worried, the city was worried. Every day there were new moths drawn to the lamp. The Haight-Ashbury was at the centre of a most remarkable renaissance of personal freedom and spiritual harmony, and tens of thousands of flower children were coming. Crash pads were becoming common, where dozens of young newcomers found a place till they found their feet. It was already starting to get crowded. Rumours swept the district that Governor Reagan was setting up a super bust in early February. Michael Bowen cautioned non-violence as the way to act when he wrote a pamphlet on behalf of the Psychedelic Rangers, published by the Communications Company here in the Haight-Ashbury by Charles Perry. Quoting, on February 5, another flyer reported that police had gone on the radio to deny the rumour, but the communications company still suggested that people get out of town, preferably to Los Angeles, where anti-war demonstrations were being planned. The wave of paranoia impelled Michael Bowen, on behalf of a group called the Psychedelic Rangers, to counsel non-violence and equanimity in a communications company handout. Quote, the calm that disperses turbulence emerges from each of us, end quote. So the February Oracle, number 6, came out, and it is here. This Oracle, number 6, featured an article by Rosalind called The Aquarian Age Symbols. Rosalind was still living at the Panhandle on the Palace with Mitch. Find this, where are we? So here is Oracle number 6. Here's the front cover. As you can see, it's starting to get more and more colourful. Here is the back cover, and this is Rosalind's article Aquarian Age Symbols by Galar. Now, John was once again not drinking, and he wrote to Alice in late January to ask her again to send money to Rosalind. Rosalind seems to have been in touch with Richard Alpert, because John reports to Alice that Rosalind thinks Alpert can finance the publication of the books of tea. Rosalind's son Christopher recalls her making a living in the Haight by drawing up astrological charts for people who would pay almost $100, which was a lot of money at the time. People would also come by for tarot readings. She would spend hours at a typewriter, perhaps receiving some automatic writing, which she was doing a little later. Now, in the Haight-Ashbury, Michael Bowen was a bit of a personality who appears in footage taken on the 2nd of February 1967, in amongst footage of the main bands in the Haight-Ashbury: the Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead, Big Brother and the Holding Company, Quicksilver Messenger Service, and the Charlatans. And this film features all of the members of this band walking down the street to the panhandle of Golden Gate Park, and Bowen's in amongst them. In addition to this, Bowen's featured on an episode of a television program called The Maze on local San Francisco TV station KPIX, and it was broadcast in February. Michael McClure, the poet, features in this program as he strolls through the Haight-Ashbury neighbourhood and meets various people of interest. Bowen is one of those that he meets, and McClure refers to him as Mr. Haight-Ashbury. Michael also gave an interview to Newsweek, which was featured in an article called Dropouts on a Mission, published as a 4-page colour spread on the 6th of February. John was intrigued by a particular phrase that Michael stated in the course of that interview, quote, "The psychedelic baby eats the psychedelic monster," end quote. This was a phrase John would return to meditate upon from time to time. The psychedelic baby eats the cybernetic monster. John was planning a move to Tepoztlan, Teapot's Land, as he termed it in a letter to Alice. The place was Libby and Pete's, and it seems that their gardener was Pablo. This seems to be where John and Pablo met. They would become life partners. Michael, Bowen and Martine now lived at the Bill Chulos house in Stinson Beach. Martine was pregnant. The Oracle had settled right into Bowen's old pad at Haight and Masonic, and the Oracle office, as it was now, became a kind of 24-hour drop-in centre. The production of the Oracle had hit the groove with issue number 5, the be-in issue, and it was all happening. Numerous volunteers ensured the Oracle continued, and as it did so, the quality continued to improve. At Easter Sunday, the 26th of March, the Bowens hosted an event for about 30 people at Stinson Beach. These people were representatives of the most prominent underground publications and were named the Underground Press Syndicate, UPS. The UPS had been around for about 4 months, formed by Walter Boart. The Oracle had joined the UPS before issue 5 of the Oracle, the January be-in issue. The syndicate, the UPS syndicate, now comprising the LA Free Press from Los Angeles, the East Village Other from New York, the Berkeley Barb and the Oracle, both from San Francisco, and the Paper and the Fifth Estate, both from Michigan, and the point of the UPS was that it was designed to facilitate the sharing of articles between these publications. According to Walter Boart, the UPS meeting was spied upon by the infamous Colonel George White from the house next door with microphones and cameras. White, a former Federal Narcotics Bureau officer, a narc, who was also a consultant to the CIA, had retired to Stinson Beach 2 years earlier. Excuse me. His work had been, among other nefarious activities, to operate safe houses in San Francisco between 1955 and 1963, where subjects were unwittingly observed through two-way glass, on psychedelics, and with sex workers. Bowen says he had slipped out of the house for some peace and quiet. He was resting on the beach, out of sight, behind a gigantic sandcastle that had been built over the weekend. White approached the sandcastle and didn't see Bowen. He gave it a good few kicks before Bowen popped up and confronted him. "What are you doing, man?" White was drunk. "You hippies, what's the point of this stuff you do? It's not gonna last." And he staggered off. Soon after, the UPS issued a handbill advertising a press conference that was to take place on the 5th of April at the Print Mint. Press release. The Council for the Summer of Love of the Haight-Ashbury community invites you to a press conference to present the unified positive forces actively involved in the community. Represented will be the Kiva, the Straight Theatre, the Church of One, the Family Dog, the Diggers, and prominent individuals. Place, time, date. So, this was the very first time that the phrase Summer of Love had appeared in print. Where did this term originate? Was it cooked up at the UPS meeting? Nobody has taken credit for it, so it's likely to remain a mystery. Bowen was at this press conference representing the Church of One. Here's a quote from the press conference. Quote, "The Council for a Summer of Love proclaims a summer of love in the city of San Francisco. We believe that Haight-Ashbury is the focus of a universal spiritual awakening. The Summer of Love is an expression of this awakening. We call upon the world to help us celebrate the infinite holiness of life." End quote. Plans were discussed at this press conference with regard to the human tide that would soon wash over the neighbourhood, and how a summer of love was needed to end the war. Bowen also discussed an idea to reclaim the streets from the automobile and thereby correct its insanity factor, which drew warm laughter from the press. And the war movement, the hippies and the radicals were now walking together in opposition to the war. And the movement had grown considerably. A protest in New York with a synchronized protest in San Francisco drew hundreds of thousands. It was announced that the next major gathering in opposition to the war in Vietnam would be held in Washington, D.C. Excuse me. And now a letter from John. 12th of May, 67, Tepoztlan. William, Michael, Roberto, which is Big Bill Fortner, Michael Bowen, Roberto Ayala. What a letter you wrote in April. Forgive delay, but life has been as screwy and swirly in these parts as in your 2x2x2 Indian world. There are Indians here too, you see, and the big stir is on, beating psychic drums from Alaska past the Amazon as the Western Continuum opens its ruby flowers and Atlantis rises. Thank you, too, for the Mother's Day call. I'm very interested in all that is going on, and it's great to witness again and again how all things really are connected between this roving band from distant stars. I always did enjoy the Rover Boys as a child, and now they are manifesting. Your idea of acquiring land and restoring it is, of course, a very positive one, but somehow the notion of the hippies working the earth is a strange one. The early Beats, yes, the Cassidys and the Kips and the Hogans of this world, sure, but this newer outcropping is so bent on death and destruction, it seems to me. But then I've been seeing only LA products recently, and they often have managed, in the main, to sit stuck at the bottom of the well. I love what is happening to the Oracle recently, and probably San Francisco is quite another scene. When I wrote to Given about the possibility, Given is one of the 5 from the reception of the Books of Tea, continuing John's letter. When I wrote to Given about the possibility of you, Bowen, starting the Church of One, he wanted nothing to do with it. Who wants another church? Was his reply. But it might be interesting for you to get in touch, if possible. His address is, here's his address. If he has a phone, it's under William Eaton. Remember, however, that like many of us, he has 2 sides, if not 5 or 6. And last heard from, he was exhibiting a certain diagram of a square, a certain squareness. He is a channel of that force called Osiris, you know, and one must be very patient with him and await right timing. And what do you know of Peter Oser, Michael? You must answer me this. After I get copies of the books made here, I'll send you all of them. I want the Church of One to handle them, but with a percentage of royalty going to the original 7 who brought them through. I'm delighted to see that you are using the Seeker book for your poster, although I would have used the Book of the Speaker. Just as a note here, the poster that John is referring to is a poster to announce a benefit that Michael was organising in the Haight-Ashbury, a karmic bail benefit fund in the Haight-Ashbury, using a line drawing of the Seeker book. The Seeker, but a line drawing. I'm delighted to see you're using the Seeker book for your poster, although I would have used the Book of the Speaker. I've decided to move at the beginning of June. This place carries too many stipulations in case any of you decide to come down. Letty, formerly Elodia, is coming to San Francisco, maybe. I'll give you her address, should she. Life is not too easy at the moment. I may have hepatitis, which is depressing. So don't sniff this paper. Love, Legion. John also wrote to Alice to say that he liked the idea of the Church of One spreading the books. He also included a loving observation of his man. Pablo is now bouncing in time to the mamas and papas on a swinging bridge, spanning the barranca as he picks lemons. He is completely earth, here and now. John reported a dream to Alice. He and another had made the treasured transition to another plane of a much higher consciousness that one and all desired to reach. John was a rose, and his cohort a spear. They made their leap not in the provided spacecraft, but via something like an LSD capsule. They made it, but everyone was terribly disappointed, as they had not gotten there by the prescribed means. But we are here. Even the Russians refused to acknowledge their accomplishment, making out that they had cheated mankind. Meanwhile, the anti-war movement continued to gather momentum. The Spring Mobilisation Conference met to discuss the enormous turnout for the April events and to organise the next move. They renamed themselves the National Mobilisation Committee to End the War in Vietnam, or the MOB, as it was immediately known. The MOB set a date for their next major protest, which would be in Washington in October. The president of the MOB, Dave Dellinger, contacted Jerry Rubin and asked him to be the project director for the Pentagon section of the March on Washington. Whereas previously such project directors were the militant unionist type, Rubin brought a magical or spiritual element to the event. Rubin moved from Berkeley to New York, where he soon met Abbie Hoffman, and together with Paul Krasner, Ed Sanders, and others, set about organising and managing the event. Here was a moment of destiny for Rubin, where he could decisively act on the information he learnt in Michael Bowen's meditation room, that the defence of the country was in need of some positive energy. So the summer of love was coming. After the great influx into the Haight-Ashbury during college spring break, thousands remained and many thousands more were on their way. A single by Scott McKenzie, San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear Flowers in Your Hair, was released in mid-May, and it became not only a nationwide hit, but a worldwide smash hit. And the kids continued to flock to San Francisco. The Beatles became part of the hip movement as they themselves turned on. It became apparent to anyone paying attention that the Beatles were smoking reefer after Rubber Soul and Revolver came out, and it seemed possible that they had taken LSD. But when Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane came out in February 1967, it removed any doubt that the Beatles were experienced with LSD. Now, as summer approached, there was a sense of anticipation among fans. A new release was long overdue, and when Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was released in the early days of summer, it would prove to be one of the key albums in the soundtrack to The Summer of Love. During the summer, Mitch volunteered at the Oracle. Alan Cohen's dream of a rainbow newspaper being read all around the world was now manifesting. The Oracle was indeed colourful and was being sent to hippie outposts all across the US and to the countercultural centres that were emerging around the world. Mitch recalls one of the other volunteers who had left the Haight just after the be-in and was now freshly returned from his travels. The returning veteran surveyed the scene. It wasn't pretty, and with a combination of astonishment and dismay said, "Oh shit, we won!" The anti-war spirit manifested in the June Oracle, and with a poem by Gary Snyder, A Curse on the Men in Washington, Pentagon. And as for that war in Vietnam, Martine figured that it would continue for some years and wanted to give the baby-to-be an option to not participate. By having dual citizenship, the child could escape the draft. Martine talked with Michael about this, and he said they could go to John in Mexico and have the baby there. Martine was a proponent of the home birth movement. One of the key principles is that the baby is not removed from the mother after birth, which is exactly the case in hospitals. Martine had studied pioneer home birther Suzanne Arms, who was the author of Immaculate Deception and Childbirth Without Fear. Michael and Big Bill had set about making arrangements to have the 22 images of the Books of Tea published. They contacted East Totem West, a poster and card printing company formed by Joe McHugh in Mill Valley in 1967. Their specialty was the poster as art, as a beautiful and decidedly psychedelic thing in itself, and produced classic posters such as The White Rabbit and The Cheshire Cat during their 18 months of existence. Up until this time, the poster was generally used for advertising purposes, but an affordable piece of art was popular with the freaky kids who came to San Francisco. There were plans to produce the Books of Tea as 22 mini posters. McHugh printed a poster-sized way shower as a test, and this is one of the posters that were produced by East Totem West, the way shower. Before McHugh, quote, sank most of the company's capital into printing the entire deck as mini posters in the ill-fated Tarot Speak project, end quote. Says McHugh, I really felt at that time that all artists should interpret the tarot. When I saw these cards, I could tell the person who painted them was not an artist. Now you can't see, but in the bottom right-hand corner of the way shower poster is written copyright 1967, John Starr Cook, M.F. Bowen, W.A. Fortner. So things have come full circle from the garden in Cuernavaca where Michael had his Aztec flower banquet initiation alongside Big Bill, and Bowen had gone on the mission as sent by John, and things had come full circle now that the poster was produced, and Bowen, in a sense, felt that his mission was accomplished. Continuing, the East Totem West catalogue calls the Tarot Speak a strange but very beautiful project which East Totem West feels more the tool than the creator. It is a set of 22 miniature posters, that is, totems, quite powerful in their effect, designed to be a new rendition of very ancient symbols that are the basis of all man's other totems. The purpose of these posters is to give man clues or a blueprint of his destiny. That is, his part in the great design. The artist John Starr Cook and 3 others joined with a group in 1962 and 1963 to whom these symbols, having to do with mankind's restoration, were revealed. Only these 22 major trumps are given or hold profound psychic and occult significance. The true secret of the tarot is contained in these 22 posters, known to initiates as books, which are presented here in their new Aquarian Age form. East Totem West has become another funnel through which is presented to you another way to find and to hold on to yourself. The entire collection of posters produced by East Totem West, including the Way Shower, was purchased by the Victoria and Albert Museum in 2004 and has been exhibited several times around the world. In early June, John wrote another letter to Michael and Bill from Tepoztlan. Dear Michael and Bill, I've had the rather disturbing news from my sister Alice that you really don't have the entire script to the Tarot Speak, and that what you have is probably not in correct order since nobody ever numbered the pages. Is this so? If so, I'll send you my entire remaining manuscript, which is numbered. Also, it must be proofread by a competent speller like Rosalind. My spelling is abysmal. Also, the ones should be capitalized when the real I is meant, in contradistinction to the personality end ones. Rosalind could do this too, I believe, if it hasn't already been done. Also, the books must be in the order they were dictated in, right? You may have all this correct, but I just want to make certain. I've decided not to stay in Tepoztlan after all. Sometime in the first 2 weeks in July, I'll move to Acapulco, where I've been given a wonderful small house overlooking the sea. I hope you can wait and come down there rather than here. Life has been spinning along, and I mean spinning. Wow, what a month of ups and downs. And it appears that the wheel will continue through June. This poor world, so subject to greater forces it doesn't believe even exist. I hate to read the newspapers, even though I know how helpless these paper crises are to the higher octaves that know what gives and drive everyone onwards from one self. I long to see the poster. I hope it gets here soon, as well as the photographs of the books. My heart is very much flaming, so I know things are happening that have been long awaited. The response to this deck is going to be interesting. The old stand tarot fanciers are going to be furious, you know. This is all I've got to write right now. Love, John. Please send me your phone number. Now, in the wider world, the Arab-Israeli 7-day war had flared up in early June. John remarked to Alice, "The Israel business is only a beginning of the begin. What a dance one is dancing." He also reported to Alice that he had been making chutneys, preserves and lemon pickles. "I'm starting on bread next week," said John. And another letter from John. Cuernavaca, July the 1st, 1967. Dearest Michael and Martine, thank you for your loving letter. The light from its typed pages proves you are a knowing one. Well, what to say today? Posters, by all means. I wonder, however, what do the books look like blown up? I am no painter in the painter sense, after all. They do have a certain charge due to the condition I was in when designing them, which may come through enlarged. McCracken wanted to redo them. No, that is incorrect. When Aquarius magazine was considering printing the stuff, they suggested he repaint them. Michael himself loved the cards as is. But of course, I am all for anything that will get them out into the market now. Sorry to hear the benefit was a fiasco. I wondered why I hadn't heard. Once out, those books ought to make money, however. Thank you for the photographs. Like every photographer, many of them have nipped off borders. And what follows here is a few correspondences, which I'll just skip over. About your coming here, I'll find out about prices, etc. There can't be any law about delivering outside of hospitals, here of all places. I'd love to have you both here. The only difficulty would be pot. No go in my house. I'm watched constantly, since 6 Quakers were kicked out of their college because of my supposedly turning them on a month back. I can't and won't have it around right now. In fact, I've gone to a new level and don't need anything anymore. Legion. What a liar John is. He drinks. John. True, but that is legal. Legion. And the worst of the lot, the delusioner par excellence. Is Stinson really warm? I only know it in winter. Brr. Lovely place, however. Give my love to the egrets. And to you both. I love you. John. So do we. Legion. 7777. John wrote to Michael again on the 5th of July. Dear Michael, you've called twice. For what it's worth, here is the blurb to be put in. For what it's worth. These are the books of Torerut. They are given to all those whose eyes are open. There is a direct correlation between Torerut and tarot. Both words spell out here and now. You have written your book. Read it as it is to you within these expressed pages of symbol, should that be your will. Each one exemplifies, through time or change, a single book. Each is singular after all, moving with the movement of one. One is in motion. One is being. That motion, that being, expresses love. On all levels, love is. Where are you at now? Nothing is what it seems. Everything is as it seems. A time of knowing is upon you. It is up to you to discover yourself. There are no other prophets. All are facets of one being. Discover yourself, here, now. The only reason these books are published now is because you are on the mark. Get set. Go. They are expressions of what you are. Legion. P.S. Michael, what else is there to say, after all? July 5th. Michael, one more bit. The list of correspondences must be given. At top it must be restated. Purposefully no numbers and few letters are given in this edition of the books. It is for each to number his sequence and to name the letters of the cards. You have written this in and on your own. The significances, more or less, we reveal. Alone, on a separate page, may the blessing of the imperishable brotherhood of being rest ever upon you in peace eternal. That, it could be said, is the dedication. John. And we'll leave it at that for today. Thank you very much for watching. This is The Time of Telling.